Yo, what is up? Welcome to Ninja Geek Games. So, it's the late 1800s and you're part of a come dine with me group, and you and the other villagers of your local town have been invited over to Dracula's castle for dinner. And what's on the menu? Well, it's you. What a pain in the neck. The only way to survive is to tell a tall tale and hope Dracula picks one of your buddies to satisfy his appetite. Dracula is a social deduction game from Ludor Studios that incorporates creative storytelling and deceptive roleplay. In this game, for 3 to 8 players, you each get a chance to take on the role of our Dracula host, while the remaining players try to convince Dracula not to eat them. If you survive, you'll gain victory points, but if Dracula is able to see past the babbling and select one of the specialist villagers, like Van Helsing the Vampire Hunter, that player will also score victory points. In this video, I'll give you a brief overview of the game mechanics and how to complete a round. Let's take a look. Bon appetit. The game setup is very simple. First, you need to separate the role cards into elite, special and standard villager decks and draw a number of cards from each deck dependent on player count. These cards are actually revealed to all players so that you all know which villagers the count is host to. What this does is let each player have insight into the subtle hints that may be given during another player's plea to stay alive. Then shuffle the excuse, act and role cards and place them within easy reach of all players, as well as the victory point tokens. At the start of a round, each player is given one role card which is kept secret from the other players. You also gain 3 excuse cards each, as well as laying out 10 more cards in the centre of the table. As a group, each villager can then swap out excuse cards from their hand with those on the table, but you only have 3 minutes to do so. Now, what you're looking to do here is try and gain excuse cards that allow you to include the statement in your plea that coincides with the villager's requirement. For instance, the chef gains bonus victory points for not being eaten if you are able to talk about food in any form during your plea. Or, if an excuse hints or directs talk about food and you notice another player takes this, then Dracula may have a difficult decision identifying who the chef is. Did that player take the excuse to make it less obvious they wanted to incorporate food in their story? Before the villagers begin their plea, Dracula will choose one of 3 act cards in hand and reveal it to the villager. These can present an additional scenario the villager must incorporate into their story, or how they must act, and just add a little bit of wacky fun into the storytelling. Then, the villager begins their plea, during which they start to reveal their excuse cards one at a time to incorporate them into their fable, remembering to take note of the act card. Once finished, each adjacent villager may place one of their own excuse cards on top of the played excuse card from the active player that must then override the previous version of the story. During this part of the game, all other players can roast or undermine the story in order to convince Dracula that that player should be eaten by picking apart their story. Here, you could convince Dracula that some parts of their story was actually given only to try and meet the villager's cards requirements for the bonus victory points. The round ends once all players have had a chance to give a convincing plea, where Dracula then makes a decision on who to eat. Here, Dracula's aim is to determine and reveal who holds a special villager card, and Dracula gains bonus points for this. Once a player is eaten, then victory points are awarding, including bonuses to those that survived. Dracula then passes to the next player, the role cards are shuffled and dealt, and the round begins again with new excuse cards. After everyone has played as Dracula, the game ends with the player with the most victory points winning. If you like social deduction games with some wacky elements, then I think you'll enjoy this, where all the special and elite villagers are fun to play as. My favourite is the real vampire, where you actually want Dracula to think you're a special villager, as you get points for being eaten. Sucks, right? I think you'll probably need to set some time limit for the storytelling, especially when playing with 8 players. The game is suitable for 14 years and up, but you could remove some of the cards from play if you want to play with younger players. What I will say is that the artwork is awesome, and this is true for all games from Ludor Studios. So, if you're looking for a funny deduction game set around a feast both with and for Dracula, where you won't be having steaks, then check out Dracula. This is Ninja Geek Games. Cheers.